I'll start off by saying this isn't just a secret document. It's classified as top secret strap 3, sigint UK eyes only. It is not meant for American eyes. Not even the American CIA is meant to look at this document. It has one mind with many tentacles, the kind of collective gestalt satanic evil. You have bank manipulation tentacles, you have the paedophile tentacles, the blackmail tentacles, but we're looking at one beast with many tentacles, almost in human form. And these people would have you believe there's no such thing as good or evil.
Hey friends, Sean from SGT Report here. You're going to want to buckle up because this is going to be one of the most important interviews I've done so far this year, and it's sure to be demonetized by YouTube since in this interview we drop bombs on the international pedophile networks and the secret documents coming from the UK that prove the efforts to topple Donald Trump. So I want to give a shout out to one of this interview's sponsors, and that's Virtual Shield. Did you guys know that DoorDash has announced its security has been breached and hackers have unloaded the data on 4.9 million of its users? It just seems like every other day we hear about stories like these. And one of the best things you can do to help protect yourself online is sign up for a free 30-day trial of Virtual Shield VPN. A VPN like Virtual Shield allows you to create a secure connection to another network over the internet. And Virtual Shield can be used to shield your browsing activity from prying eyes, whether you're on a Wi-Fi connection at a coffee shop in a foreign country or at home. Here, let me show you how easy it is. Go to virtualshield.com and download the free 30-day trial, install it on your computer, and click Connect. It's as easy as that. Once you're connected, your IP address will appear as a different one. In my case, one coming from Chicago, and I don't live anywhere near Chicago. And this month, Virtual Shield is offering a Halloween month-long special of 25% off all VPN plans and all premium add-ons for as low as a cup of coffee. So sign up for a free 30-day trial to Virtual Shield VPN and see what the hype is about. You have nothing to lose and your privacy to keep. I'll leave the link below. Okay, friends, let's begin with Mark Anthony Taylor. We've got some groundbreaking important information to cover, including some secret documents, all of which makes for one heck of a story given the new releases coming from DoD Anon. DoD Anon has shed light on the fact that the real war going on right now behind the scenes, and that's been going on for quite some time, is a war between the UK government, the Queen of England, and the United States of America, with billions of dollars being siphoned off and supposedly finding its way directly into the pockets of the royals. I have on the line right now Mark Anthony Taylor. He's a litigator against the banks for manipulation of the bullion markets, and he's uncovered so much more. Mark, welcome.
Thank you, Sean. I'll start off by saying this isn't just a secret document. It's classified as top secret strap 3, sigint UK eyes only. So this is the highest you can secure a document in the UK. It is not meant for American eyes. Not even the American CIA is meant to look at this document. This document was emailed to me by my friend Caroline Stevens, who was the manager for the Vote Leave campaign. Boris Johnson at the time was Secretary of State for Foreign and Commonwealth Affairs. I think he was given his job at the end of mid-2016. Now, this letter was sent from Robert Hannigan to Boris Johnson. There's no reply here from Boris Johnson. So an enemy of Boris Johnson could take this as incriminating Johnson, but my belief is that what this does is incriminate Robert Hannigan, and I believe that this letter was leaked by Boris Johnson, which is why Johnson has a good relationship with Donald Trump. Because, well, what this all shows, as I will show later on, is that British intelligence, British government is basically split in two, between the people exposing the paedophiles and the paedophiles.
Well, Mark, let me just jump in.
Yeah.
People are going to be reading this document as we're talking about it. I'll put it up on screen.
Okay.
Let's read through this quickly, and then you can give us the background, because this is some of the most important stuff that I've ever talked about on this show. Now,
Okay.
in this document sent to Boris Johnson, at the time MP, from Robert Hannigan, the director of GCHQ, point number 1 here, on August 28th, 2016, GCHQ CSO filed for permission to execute Project Folsom at the request of the U.S. President, folks, that would have been Barack Obama, seeking intelligence gathering into the Trump Organization and Donald J. Trump for President, Inc., both located at 725 Fifth Avenue, New York, New York. Activities include foreign and U.S. domestic signals collection in regards to communication with Russian hostile actors. Let's jump down to number 4. U.S. National Security Advisor Rice has requested that we continue our surveillance during the transition period. Its internal U.S. intelligence is potentially compromised by the incoming Trump administration.
Could we go back to point 3?
Yeah, please do.
Now, this is key. Since Folsom's start, a clear pattern of actionable leads has accrued from former MI5 agent Michael Steele, but before that, he says from the Trump campaign itself. Well, this letter is sent from Hannigan to Johnson to petition to have Trump spied on at the behest of Obama and Rice, and the evidence is just this general reference to the Trump campaign. So this is clear political bias. So the man who wrote this, Robert Hannigan, from his writing appears to be acting from instincts. And what he wants to do is not start this Folsom operation, but extend it for 90 days. Now that's the letter. Now within 2 months of this letter being sent, Robert Hannigan quits his job as the head of GCHQ. This letter is leaked. It's possible that the leaking led to Robert Hannigan's resignation. Robert Hannigan told Johnson that he was quitting his post because of family problems. The National Crime Agency, I presume, was sick and tired of the security services, disclosed that Hannigan had sent a letter of recommendation in the trial of Father Edmund Higgins, who was distributing James Elephantis-style baby pornography. Have you heard of that one, Sean?
Well, we're very familiar with James Elephantis and Comet Ping Pong and the entire story that was deep-sixed by the U.S. media and called a conspiracy theory. I just want people to understand, and Mark, this is important, because when we talk about Comet Ping Pong, when we talk about the disinformation campaigns against truth,
Yep.
This is an excellent example, this British Twitter executive. I just want to share this with you guys from Zero Hedge. This dates back to September 30th. Senior Twitter executive exposed as British PSYOPs soldier. The senior Twitter executive with editorial responsibility for the Middle East is also a part-time officer in the British Army's Psych Warfare Unit, Middle East Eye has established. Apparently, Gordon Macmillan, Twitter's head of editorial for Europe, Middle East, and Africa, not only works for the British government, but is a reservist in the 77th Brigade. So in case you don't know what the 77th Brigade is, guys, it's a counterintelligence unit set up to combat disinformation on social media. Let that sink in. What they call disinformation is what we call truth, and it's the same exact tactics being unrolled right now on MSNBC and CNN all day long, 24/7. Go tune in and watch it. They won't tell people the truth about what Biden did in Ukraine, and they're trying to impeach this president for non-crimes.
As you can see for yourself from Hannigan's Wikipedia entry, there is no mention whatsoever of Father Edmund Higgins. So obviously, MI5 or whoever it is, that man you just mentioned, are involved in glossing over or covering up Hannigan's past. So you have someone whose instincts it is to cover up child porn rings, and then he writes this document. And you can imagine GCH, well, you don't have to imagine, we know that GCHQ spies on the US and then gives the information to the CIA, and that is to circumvent the laws in the US prohibiting spying on domestic soil. But if Hannigan is in charge of GCHQ and he's allowing these baby pornographers to get away with it in an active role, then he would be the man to filter out incriminating data from the Podesta and ping pong scandals before it hit the CIA databases. So people like Hannigan are instrumental in covering up Pizzagate. And as you say, he has associates from this 77th Brigade who are running Wikipedia, who call Comic Ping Pong a right-wing debunked conspiracy theory. If you look at the editors for the Comic Ping Pong website, there is one called No Matter. We only know him by his pseudonym, but he has done reviews on child trafficking video games, so basically simulations for people who want to know what it would be like to be a child trafficker, and he's editing the Comet Ping Pong pizza page.
Yeah, you really can't make this stuff up. We've reported about this stuff in earnest. The UK at the very highest levels is absolutely saturated with these pedophiles. I've covered it. The heads of MI5, the heads of MI6, they've all been involved in this stuff. Here's an article right here. I've never read this before. I just looked it up while you're speaking. How Thatcher's MI5 spy chief protected a pedophile member of parliament. Let's read. The head of Britain's MI5 domestic intelligence service told the Thatcher government that a pedophile MP was operating in the House of Commons, but suggested a plot to cover up his penchant for small boys in order to avoid political embarrassment. It was a plan the government was only too happy to accept. Mark, the point is that this stuff, look at Jimmy Savile, right?
Yeah.
Best friends with the prince.
Prince Charles, yeah.
Prince Charles, and named, I believe, as the godfather to Prince Charles' sons. This man was involved in all measure of pedophilia, child trafficking.
That's what they called Jeffrey Epstein, wasn't it? The godfather of two sons.
These people, the mainstream mockingbird horror media, continues to malign this stuff as misinformation. I mean, YouTube changed its algorithms to filter out this type of truth from coming up in the search results. And so I want people to understand, Mark, what's going on here now in this country. Because I was watching MSNBC last night, and my blood was boiling. These people omit the truth. They circumvent the truth, and they bring on intelligence agency or former intelligence agency people to provide color, I guess, to color their lies and paint the picture that President Trump should be impeached. So you have another document here. Security Service MI5 sent out to news editors, evidently, June 30th, 2017. I want people to understand how this works. Let me just read this real quick, Mark. As you will be aware, the UK is currently in delicate negotiations with the Kingdom of Saudi Arabia over the forthcoming IPO of that state oil enterprise, Saudi Aramco. Let me skip down to the fourth paragraph. This is the important part. You may not be aware that HSBC is Saudi Aramco's advisors in the IPO. I am sure you will appreciate that any negative reporting surrounding HSBC at this delicate time will not be helpful to these negotiations. We would not want the Saudis to form an opinion that HSBC, by the way, guys, a completely criminally corrupt bank, internationally one of the most corrupt banks that has ever been. Get back to the document. HSBC is not a fit and proper outfit to see through the IPO, particularly in view of the UK impending exit from the EU. Well, we can talk about that. They keep wanting to end this Brexit. They don't want Brexit to happen either. But the point is that MI5 is meddling with the press, saying, don't cover any of the crimes of HSBC. We don't want the Saudis to get cold feet. This is just one example of how these intelligence agencies meddle in the affairs of these complicit Mockingbird mainstream media outlets, Mark?
Okay, on that D-Notice document you've just read out, I think it's very important to compare this with the prosecution of Roger Jenkins by the Serious Fraud Office. He was prosecuted for secretly loaning the Qataris, I think that was about £2 billion or dollars, so that the Qataris could buy back Barclays shares and create fake share value. So obviously it was just a way of pumping up the share prices just by bribing someone. So this is exactly the same class of fraud, a secret loan extension, and by extension I presume that Saudi Aramco had no intention of repaying that loan. So basically we just gifted them an extension. So we're just gifting them money, and then they buy back HSBC's services to create fake value in those services. So exactly the same class of fraud that got Roger Jenkins indicted. The Barclays executives are still being prosecuted now. This letter seems to incriminate Andrew Parker, the head of MI5, and it was sent to Theresa May. So I presume that she is just as incriminated in these frauds.
Yeah, well, HSBC, look, guys, I don't know if you know this, but Mark has lawsuits out right now. For a very long time, he has been pursuing lawsuits, litigating against JP Morgan and Deutsche Bank for the blatant manipulation of the precious metals markets. So Mark Anthony Taylor, if you're not familiar, has been walking down the truth path for a very long time at great personal risk to himself. So Mark, I want to commend you for doing that, because in an environment of nearly universal deceit, as Orwell said, telling the truth is a revolutionary act, and you have to be brave to do it. Look no further than the 77th Brigade and its counterintelligence unit, and this guy over at Twitter who's there to combat truth like what we're talking about right now.
Well, Sean, there's only two people who've published the stuff I've investigated, and that is yourself and Caroline Stevens. So it's not just a case of a pat on the back for the investigators. You know, you deserve a pat on the back more than anyone else. There are many who call themselves alternative news who will not touch this story. Many of the big names in the alternative news will not touch anything that I release.
Well, I appreciate you saying that. Look, the bottom line for me is I want these pedophile networks dismantled and taken down. And I'm not so sure that Jeffrey Epstein actually died in prison. There's quite a few people who believe maybe he was renditioned out of prison. And unfortunately, he probably didn't make it to Guantanamo. If he survived, I think he's probably protected. I don't know what's going on with that particular story, but I will tell you this. What's going on in the UK and has been going on for decades is an absolute abomination. And I mentioned people being the head of MI5, MI6. Here's one, Sir Peter Telford Heyman, the former head of the MI6, involved in pedophilia. And I forgot to mention the former MP, Sir Edward Heath, who after his death was implicated in the murders of as many as 16 children. So Mark, the documents you're bringing to the table about the election meddling in 2016 is a huge, huge story and a big, big deal. But I'm almost more concerned about these pedophilia networks, because that's the stuff being used to control people like Adam Schiff and all sorts of Congress critters in this country. It's really pits of hell stuff.
I submitted a FOIA to Parliament asking them for a copy of the Epstein emails sent to Parliament that the Times alleged were leaked to the Daily Mail. The Epstein emails apparently blackmail Parliament into putting Jess Staley in charge of Barclays. Now, at first, Parliament wrote back and it said, we're using parliamentary privilege not to respond to you, and we neither admit nor deny that the emails exist. When I queried them, they said that the emails did exist, the information exists, which I presume the blackmail was real. And they also, Parliament's FOIA team identified that the Treasury Select Committee had those emails. So I presume someone on that committee leaked the emails to the Daily Mail, and that shows that Epstein was blackmailing Parliament to put Staley in power. Staley responded to the Daily Mail, more or less said he hardly knew Epstein, but recently it was disclosed that J.P. Morgan's Mary Callahan Erdoes, I think I've got the pronunciation correct, who was the finance chief at J.P. Morgan for the billionaire investment fund, she knew that Epstein was putting illicit money into J.P. Morgan. Her auditors were warning her about it, and Jess Staley told her to overrule the auditors. And Jess Staley has been on Epstein's Island. He visited Epstein when Epstein was supposedly in prison, and we've seen the evidence trail that Jess Staley was groomed by Epstein from the very beginning. He owed everything to Epstein.
Can I ask you something?
Yep.
I want to make a distinction here. I may have misspoken when I said the real war that's been going on is one between the UK government and the US government, right? These intelligence agencies in the UK versus this government. That's a little too simple. Because when we take a look at, I want your opinion on this. When we take a look at Jeffrey Epstein and his relationship to Leslie Wexner, the billionaire CEO of Limited Brands and Victoria's Secret and all that, he set up the Wexner Foundation, which focuses on the development of Jewish professional and volunteer leaders in North America and public leaders in Israel. Let's just mention the Mossad and the influence that these pedophile entrapment circles have on British politicians and intelligence agency heads.
Yep.
One might make the argument that the Mossad uses people like Jeff Epstein and pedophilic circles to ensnare these people to do the bidding of Israel against the United States. I don't think we can just throw the British government under the bus here. I think they're all involved in this stuff, and maybe most roads lead back to Israel and Mossad. Your thoughts?
From what I can see in the Daily Mail, and from what my contacts have told me, that the people leaking the exclusive articles on Prince Andrew to the Daily Mail, which is running a lot of exclusives in comparison to The Guardian, which had no exclusives whatsoever, most of that stuff, I believe, was leaked by the MI5. My sources tell me that MI5 absolutely detest Prince Andrew. He was hated from his time in the army. People would his fellow soldiers would vandalize his Range Rover. They did not like him. So this blackmail ring, it was clearly set up by Epstein, who himself was probably a protege of various Mossad agents, including Ghislaine Maxwell. Ghislaine Maxwell is the daughter of Robert Maxwell. Now, Robert Maxwell stole hundreds of millions of pounds from his own pension fund, and as a result, policy was introduced into the UK where CEOs of particularly listed companies on the London Stock Exchange would have to prove that they were men of good character to the Financial Conduct Agency, the Prudential Regulation Authority, and the Financial Reporting Council. Now, all three of these agencies know of the disclosures against Staley. They know that Staley is a rotten apple in charge of Barclays. But the question is, if Epstein's dead and his blackmail ring died with him, why is it he's still CEO of Barclays? And I believe the answer is that the blackmail ring is still in operation. So MI5 are leaking this information, trying to destroy this blackmail ring. There's recently a guy gone on the run in Russia, hasn't he? He's claimed asylum in Russia because he said the FBI have the dirt on Prince Andrew.
Right.
Now, he said in his latest video, I haven't got a link for it, but he said in his latest video he's done with this English guy that it was MI5 who leaked the fact that the FBI have the blackmail material. Now, that suggests to me that MI5's role wasn't to facilitate the blackmail, but to disarm it. So the question is, who is the intelligence operation keeping Staley in power? And I believe it to be Mossad. Robert Maxwell was a well-known Mossad operator. And so you can guess his daughter would be that way inclined. And all of the people around Staley seem to be, and Epstein, seem to be hardcore Zionists. Epstein, Harvey Weinstein, and Lloyd Blankfein are all part of an organization called the Robin Hood Foundation. And that seems to buy off black activists in New York. So I believe they're all part of this banking cabal. And now, if Mossad are handpicking Barclays executives, then one should suspect that Staley is not the only selection. Now, prior to Staley, you have Anthony Jenkins and you have Roger Jenkins. Roger Jenkins was alleged to be involved with child abuse parties, paedophile parties in the USA. I would strongly suspect that they were Epstein's parties. And Anthony Jenkins and Roger Jenkins and Staley have all run venues for the Clinton Global Initiative, who were deeply involved with Epstein's paedophile rings. So my impression is that all of the directors of Barclays have been handpicked by Mossad. And if Mossad are going to pick the directors of Barclays and they've got this blackmail ring, then why stop there? I believe that almost every executive of every bank has been picked out by Mossad. Once all of the banking executives are essentially Mossad puppets, then that means anything the banks finance, which is insurance companies, film projects, pension schemes, anything sponsored by a big business is basically under Mossad's thumb. So the way I see it, it isn't quite the British stealing everything from the Americans. I think the British are being blackmailed. I mean, here in Britain we have these private schools, and they're infamous for the homosexuality and the paedophilia. So I think we have a serious paedophile problem at the top of society. People like Ted Heath were blackmailed to take us into the EU.
That's right.
Yep.
Sir Edward Heath, the guy named by his own offspring as being involved in the deaths of as many as 16 children while he was alive.
Yep. And Lord Peter Mandelson, who was the EU commissioner, who went from near bankruptcy, then after 10 years as EU commissioner, had £100 million in the bank. And in the Rains list, Joan Coleman's Rains list, Peter Mandelson is alleged to have killed a rent boy called Kevin, chopped him into pieces and dumped the pieces into the sea. And the Rains list also named Cyril Smith and Ted Heath years before the mainstream media got hold on to it. So I have a great belief in that. And we also know that Mandelson was a guest on Epstein's Island and a friend of Epstein, but Mandelson is gay, so I don't think he was on Epstein's Island to indulge with the girls.
I'm glad I asked you about the Mossad, because you tied that together nicely, and that's exactly what I was alluding to, is that the Mossad exercises a lot of blackmail using these pedophile circles and has perhaps coerced the Brits into doing a lot of the dirty work on their behalf. Okay, let me read this to you, because I want to circle this back to Comet Ping Pong. I want to circle this back to the DC problem of child pedophilia that we all spoke about here in the Truth Media, and which was covered up by CNN. You mentioned the gentleman who fled to Russia for his own safety, having dirt on Prince Andrew. Let me tie that together for folks. Ex-Florida cop accuses FBI of covering up Prince Andrew's role in Jeffrey Epstein's scandal. This from the New York Post, dated September 25th, 2019, this is fresh news, folks. An ex-Florida cop who claims to have incriminating evidence of Prince Andrew is accusing the FBI of covering up the royals' role in the Jeff Epstein sex scandal. John Mark Dugan worked as a Palm Beach County Sheriff's deputy in 2005, the year the department launched an investigation into the pedophile financier who died in a jailhouse suicide in August. Quote, "I'm certain the FBI is involved in some kind of cover-up over Epstein," he told the Times of London. That could absolutely include Andrew's role, or it could be that senior FBI people visited the house and don't want to reveal that, end quote. Dugan now lives in Russia after fleeing there in 2016 while under investigation in an unrelated case for alleged hacking. All right, here's the thing. Tying this together, he was a Palm Beach County Sheriff's deputy back in 2005. What's been going on in Florida to this day needs to be reported upon because I think it all ties back to the DC-centric problem of pedophilia. You guys have your problems going on in the UK at the highest levels. We've had it going on here too. Recall that on May 25th, 2017, the body of Branton Wisenot was found on a Florida beach. I believe he was a prosecutor in Debbie Wasserman Schultz's district. Guys, bodies keep dropping. People keep dying. Anybody that gets too close to the real truth about this horrible stuff either winds up dead or they have to flee to Russia. I just wanted to share that with folks, Mark, because it all ties together. You know, you're on that side of the pond, I'm on this side of the pond, but we're talking about the same thing, and it's a global problem.
I'm starting to believe that there may not be a single individual, there might not even be kind of arch oligarchs behind this. The way it all functions is that people like Robert Hannigan, they operate on instinct. And if you were to communicate to them, it's not as if you're communicating to an individual, but a kind of collective gestalt satanic evil. So that it has one mind with many tentacles. And you have bank manipulation tentacles, you have the paedophile tentacles, the blackmail tentacles, but we're looking at one beast with many tentacles, almost in human form. It is an incarnation of evil. And these people would have you believe there's no such thing as good or evil.
I just did a video about that. What happens to a society when you remove the concept of God from it? When you don't teach the kids, your children, about a higher power, a creator? When you take all of that out and all you're left with is atheism, society spirals out of control pretty darn quickly. Look at Antifa. Look at these rabid leftists screaming at the top of their lungs to seize the guns in this country and offer women government paid for abortions in the 9th month. This is pits of hell, Dante's Inferno stuff, Mark. And I just want to say one more thing. When you look at the people aligned against this president, they're from all walks of life at the highest powers. They may be in the media at MSNBC, Washington Post, New York Times, or CNN. They may be in Hollywood, people like Robert De Niro. Robert De Niro is seething, foaming at the mouth to see Trump impeached. Meanwhile, according to the New York Post, Robert De Niro subjected female employee to creepy and abusive behavior. And who is Robert De Niro's good friend who fled to Paris instead of having to do time for the anal rape of a female teen? Roman Polanski. Folks, this stuff runs deep and you can't make it up. And meanwhile, people like Meryl Streep will stand and celebrate and applaud Roman Polanski for getting an award that he couldn't accept at the Oscars a few years back because he's hiding out in Paris. All right, Mark, let's wrap this thing up. There's so much more to talk about, so I'll definitely get you back on.
Oh, thank you, Sean.
How can people find your work? Take us out with your last comments.
Okay, you can find a lot of my videos published by Caroline Stevens on Stepping Stones for Truth video channel on YouTube.
Excellent. I don't know how many people in the UK are doing what you're doing on behalf of humanity, man. I got to tell you, standing up against these big international banks, that takes balls of steel.
Well, I'd like to think so.
All right. Well, keep hacking at the root. We appreciate what you're doing, Mark, and thanks for coming on today.
Okay. Thank you, Sean.
Absolutely. My pleasure. And guys, thank you for tuning in. Hey, look, for real news, the antidote to corporate propaganda and mainstream media lies, there's one place you can definitely go every day, and that's sgtreport.com. Guys, we really appreciate your support. Shout out to our patrons. Thanks for keeping us in this fight for truth. And thanks for tuning in. Spread this far and wide.
And click like.
And click like. All right. We love you guys. Thanks so much.
Cheers.
Bye-bye.